skill shots as well. Very right size. As always, thank you so much for joining us. We will see you again a little later today. There's so much on the line here in Game 4 as Mega fight for their tournament lives.
And thank you very much, Quickthought. We're already ready for Champions League. We're in the thick of it. Renekton already banned away. Greg is going to follow. I am Dracos. This is Christy Enterfryson joining me. And Christy, we wanted to hit this before we got into the Champions League, but last Champions League was very odd. We saw Pantheon get through, Akali was picked early, Xayah didn't exist for half the Champions League, so what do we actually expect going into the rematch today?
Dracos, it's weird again, because Qiyana's open, Pantheon's open, Yumi's open. All these power picks that we've seen so far throughout the tournament are going to be left up, and Mega banning away the Pantheon. It was G4 that piloted it in the last time these two teams faced off. But interesting to see the Akali presence so high up here, because Yumi was a pick that Pop played in the LST and it was super powerful. Duel and Pop love to go for that Ezreal Yumi. So I'd really like to see them actually go back towards that, but maybe even prioritize that Qiyana for themselves as well.
Curious though, I do like the Akali being locked in for Artifact. He has been, I think, the strongest performer individually on the low-key esports lineup. Might even be arguable that he's been the strongest individual in the group as a whole, even if the team performance hasn't quite ramped up in the same way. But Xayah and Rakan are both open. Pretty easy lock-in for Mega if they do want to secure the bot lane, but it will not be the Yumi that you were kind of hoping for.
It is interesting because Mega were always a team with a very strong bot lane in the summer LST split, but they rarely ever played through them. It was just leave Duel and Daewoo and Pop to their own devices. They were going to win lane by themselves. But with the Xayah and Rakan, while that is a very strong 2 versus 2, it makes you think that Lloyd might get involved in the action down there. They do have a lot of setup to try and make plays around bot lane.
Have to see how low-key want to respond though. Do they want to take the Yumi themselves? It's a cornucopia of power picks left up and available.
Where's the Qiyana?
Actually really surprising not to see. You have to wonder if there's some individual comfort questions for the respective players on the stage. Have they forgotten it exists? Could happen. Don't think it's likely, but as an option, Elise instead will be the lock-in. So pressure on DNK to be a big force in the early game here. Luckily, Elise very much empowers him to do so.
And I think having a strong early game jungler is going to be very important for Loki in this game, because the last time these two teams faced off, the solo lanes actually went pretty rough for them early on, especially. G4 was able to pick up a solo kill. We all remember Rocky and his split pushing later on into the game, so if they're able to pair that up with strong solo laners, the Akali can do that once she hits level 6, maybe something else powerful in the top lane like a Renekton. You can look to play through those lanes and turn around what went poorly for them the last time they faced off.
And I love seeing G4 with the LeBlanc in his hands. A lot of potential to make big plays here once he gets a few items under his belt. We saw in the previous game what Showmaker could do on the champion. Wonder if we'll see a similar performance from G4 today as we enter the second ban phase. But I'm really curious. I think the big question on my mind, Ender, looking at low-key esports, is what does Hani opt to play? How is he going to be utilized here? Because honestly, it felt like a bit of a weak point. You pointed out the Camille split pushing. Rocky is, of course, a world-class top laner, but you cannot be that weak point for your team.
Well, what probably ends up happening here is low-key have to blind pick the top laner, because right now they've already shown the Akali, which I personally think is going to go into the hands of Artifact. He looked so good on that last time, but they maybe want to dodge that LeBlanc matchup up against G4. And Mega, because they already have their mid laner locked in here, they should be looking for their jungle pick now. Get something for Lloyd. There have been a couple early game bans thrown his way, so he's going to have to dip a little bit deeper into the pool with the Gragas banned away as well. And it's going to be hard to find something that actually can go blow for blow against, at least in the early game.
And honestly, saving counterpick for Rocky just feels so difficult for Loki to respond to. But interesting that Mega in their second ban phase, they have to ban the Ashe and the Tristana. It does now get locked in, so looking to match fire with fire here in the early game.
I do like this a lot, especially Xin Zhao next to LeBlanc. Talk about a power mid lane 2v2 right there. Even if Akali goes into the mid lane, we consider her more of a safe option. It is going to be very hard to survive against those ganks. I like this blind Kled though for Hani up in the top lane. The Renekton was one we mentioned earlier, but of course that got banned away much earlier on into the draft. It won't be the Gangplank that he went into a losing matchup against last time. And now I wonder, does Rocky go for something hard split push again? Like a Jax, I think, is a very, very strong matchup you can take into the Kled and outscale heavily into a side lane.
See if that's a matchup he's comfortable with. Rocky, of course, a lot of his comfort picks still up and available. The Camille one that worked so well last time. Why not run it back?
Sure.
And Ender, we got two comps that in the past I would have identified pretty heavily as kind of 1-3-1 action, depending on how they want to play this out. Is this game just entirely about the early game now, with junglers locked in like the Elise and the Xin, and side laners like the Camille, the Kled, you've got a Kali LeBlanc mid lane. Is it just early game?
I think early game is going to be super, super important here, specifically when I compare scaling across these lanes. Bottom lane, you consider Lucian Thresh probably stronger in that 2v2 blow for blow up against Daywall and Pop, but the scaling on that side definitely goes towards Mega, so I feel like DNK maybe needs to get involved around this bottom lane and really just stop Lloyd from using this Xin Zhao to just run away, because I think ganks are so much easier to execute on this Xin Zhao jungle pick, and Lloyd will definitely be trying to get in the face of Loki early on.
And ease of execution, always something that you have to consider on this stage. A lot of pressure on both of these teams, and more so on Mega. Loki, the potential to lock themselves and HKA in the top 2 spots in this group, and on the opposite side, Mega playing for their tournament lives. So when push comes to shove, they go back to some of the picks that have been the most successful for them so far. The Camille in the hands of Rocky, inevitably have to put my eyes on that one.
And I really like seeing them go back to that, because I felt like the last time these two teams faced off, it was all about Rocky's Camille in a side lane and playing that split push style to just create so much pressure on the rest of the map, and I think that they can look to execute that again. The only engage tool they have to worry about on the other side is going to be that Kled. So assuming this is an even game state and we get towards that 30-minute mark, the last time these teams faced off, it went late. It went to 40 minutes. It's going to be about, can Rocky make something happen before Honey groups with the team and forces a fight?
Big question coming into the early game. Will we make it late? Will it be another 30, 40-minute game, or is this one going to be just as explosive as the draft might indicate? Low-key versus Mega. Kicking off. All right, I'm going to be honest. Halo Blade Xin Zhao seems utterly disgusting.
Dude, I'm into it. I'm into it, Dracos. Yeah, you talk about early game power. You get that fast Dragon Strike to get the knock up. Lloyd is going to be able to make ganks happen very, very well in this early game. And I think you brought up, is early game just the most important thing? And I think we're getting a little bit of a suggestion that it is, because both mid laners, even though they do have champs that could go side lanes later on, they're both rocking the Ignite. Mid lane 2v2 is going to be really, really important. And specifically when we look at this matchup between mid laners and junglers, I'm looking for Mega to make things happen pre-level 6. Post-level 6, though, I think that's where Artifact unlocks a whole lot more power in the fight, in the 2v2, and that's where Loki could probably turn it around.
And I like the early move coming in from G4 here. Looked a little bit risky, but is able to use the distortion to move in and out of the enemy jungle and lay down a bit of vision, making sure that they can track the Elise early on and shut down some of the playmaking that DNK would like to bring to the table. Of course, bot lane is going to opt to Elise, which will put Mega's bot lane behind a little bit unless they want to stay as well. But it looks like they are going to lane and going to let Xin solo blue on his own.
So the sort of scouting phase before minions spawn is going very well for Mega already, because Lloyd is going to be hiding where he's starting on the map. Of course, they have that deep ward on DNK's blue buff. So Mega know that it is a bot side start with a leash coming through from the jungler, whereas Loki don't necessarily. And Lloyd, because he's starting on blue, it's a little interesting because usually Xin Zhao's might look for a level 2 or a level 3 gank. This indicates to me he might be going a little bit slower inside of his jungle early on, but once he does hit that level 3 and picks up a red buff, that's where he's going to unlock, and that's where he's going to be trying to track DNK, because now he knows DNK went straight buff to buff. Red buff into his blue buff on the top side of the map. This actually indicates that DNK is going to be coming downwards and not actually looking for a play up top lane. When you do take these camps, you'll notice that you get the red, you get the blue buff, and then all of a sudden, you want to walk straight on down. You set up this easy path and then can influence the bottom lane a little bit later on into the map around the 4-minute mark.
But for now, 4 minutes of the expectation there, but we're going to see if Xin gets some successful action off.
Ooh.
Well, DNK not going bot side quite yet. There is a clever ward placed by Rocky. I think just doing his due diligence as he starts to push forward. May have to back off the wave here. Bear Trap on a rope is going to connect. Rocky now pulled back, holding off, waiting. Have to wonder what he's skilled. Level 2 is going to be the hookshot wall dive. Really just taking his time here. The cocoon goes very wide, I guess, trying to predict a flash. They're going to go in. They're going to get the kill anyway. Works out for Loki in the end.
So the thing I missed in DNK's jungle pathing was he included 2 of the small wolves in his path, because usually if you just take red, blue, and Gromp, you won't hit level 3. If you include the 2 small wolves, you do. So this is a confusing path that I don't think Rocky expected, because even though he saw Elise on that blue buff, he didn't think that DNK was going to be ticking over to level 3 quite so fast and have that opportunity for the gank.
And look, we are in a very explosive early game focused matchup for the jungler, so getting that early kill is going to be a huge advantage. But of course, Elise has to back to spend that gold. The additional XP not going to mean too much quite yet, and it does mean that Lloyd manages to secure the scuttle, basically uncontested, And as you look back, I was waiting for a hookshot wall dive, but Rocky only level 2. Doesn't look like he skilled it. It makes a pretty easy play despite the missed cocoon.
Yeah, he tried to juke back right there, still holding on to the flash the entire time. Never actually going to use that one. I have to question that decision coming through from him. Of course, holding on to it does mean there is more playmaking opportunity if Lloyd does come into the top lane, but that just doesn't seem to be the case now, as DNK is hard sticking around this top side of the map, while Lloyd has now picked up both Scuttle Crabs, and with a bot lane that's pushing out from low-key, can find a gank.
Lloyd fishing for the setup. Should be pretty easy, but Venus has the ability to stop this with the Flay. The Lantern is there as well. Lucian has the dash. Should be good to set up, and now they're going to try to turn it. They baited them in. Celebrity now has to run for his life. The Lantern pulls him back, but right into Lloyd. Venus now in trouble. The heal comes out. Wind becomes lightning, and Venus heads straight towards the grave.
Well-timed gank right there with a little bit of baiting from Mega's bottom lane. Venus thought it was just going to be that isolated 2v2, but it gets turned straight around. And now Lloyd still sticking around. You do see that DNK is pathing towards this bottom side of the map, so if the dive takes too long, it could get turned right around.
I love it. I love it. Go, run it back. Red buff, though. Good connection onto the recon, but he doesn't take Tard out yet, and that means Lloyd is going to be in trouble. He goes up, comes down. DNK grabs the kill. Perfect read from the side of low-key.
That's just too greedy, though, from Lloyd, because he knows what DNK's path was. He had the vision after that top lane gank. It seems so clear that DNK would have to come back down towards this bottom side of the map, so maybe Mega, in these high-pressure moments where losing this game means they are out of contention for moving on here at the Worlds Tournament, they just try to greed for too much, and now he's facing down a 2-0 Elise.
And as terrifying as that is, there is still good news, but we'll hold that thought as we look back on this play, and you can see low-key think that they've gotten the engage of a lifetime as they try to grab this one here.
Yeah, but then, of course, there's nowhere for Venus to go. He also loses Aftershock. That's a really big deal because he committed with the hook in first. His Aftershock basically got him nothing. There were no resistances, or there were no damage coming down when those resistances were primed. And then you see Lloyd pathing on in. They could have just stuck around for a turret plate. Instead, Pop and Day will have to abandon Lloyd because they're split up and there's no flash on this Injao.
And at that point, Pop's just very glad that he didn't try to throw out a Gleaming Quill or anything before that to take tower aggros. He gets locked up under the tower. And DNK really proving himself on the Elise jungle, a champion that I've had mixed feelings about in the playing stage so far. Very execution heavy often in the early game, but DNK is executing and is making a difference. But there is, it's not all sunshine and rainbows, Christy. I'm not going to lie. I'm a little concerned for Hani on the top side. Not only because Lloyd is walking up there, thirsting after some Kled, but because Rocky is very, very far ahead in CS. That's a 20 CS discrepancy, despite a successful assist in the early game for Hani. He's getting smashed in the 1v1. Good news is DNK is on the way, but Lloyd, I think, is going to spot him out as he walks in the lane. He's going to walk away the second he sees the spider, but it's going to make it that much harder for Hani to farm up comfortably under tower.
I really like the defensive pathing, though, from DNK, realizing when dives are possible. Level 6 on Artifact.
Waiting, trying to set up the passive, get a bit more damage. Shuriken flip, gonna take him out. LeBlanc maybe gonna look for the burst. Artifact is forced to flash away. Artifact needs to be careful. The second dash, what is he doing? Why did he go back in? In the end, now goes back up. Rocky comes in. DNK now in trouble. Low key. Bit of a miserable play there. DNK running for his life. That's gonna be it. The tack sweep comes out. The shutdown goes in, but that was a catastrophe.
Yeah, I mean, because it starts off, you know, you think Artifact has the jump on him. Hani's just gonna be a bully right there. Go farm, Hani, you're down 20 CS. You're actually losing here. Please go farm.
He's going in. There's no mana. He wants the remount. He's got the ult. You might not have seen it, but Hani did enter. He now wants to go in, but Xin on the way. He's denied the back. He's remounted.
No.
Run, little Chocobo, run. Oh, it's not going to happen, Hani. He's going to make it out. All right, he's getting away.
But now Hani's going to get denied even more because, in theory, Lloyd could run up topside, look for a gank. Rocky doesn't have TP, so without mana, probably just has to go back to base. But now, because Hani stayed for so long, he'll have to go home again. Now, importantly, in this fight, Artifact had not recalled yet. So there's a Doran shield for the Akali. There's a lost chapter for G4. Still, it starts off great for low-key. You know, they get all the damage, but then Artifact goes to the kill steal instead of just ulting away, or maybe he could have survived. And then with Rocky having that priority in the top lane, can roam down quite easily and eventually chase down DNK for the shutdown, which is going to be even more brutal in this matchup because...
Whoa, hold that thought! Dale's dead, so's someone else. Welcome back.
It's a 1-for-1.
Celebrity going down. Looks like Dale traded in the end for Venus, so a positive trade for the side of low-key. Celebrity finding more action on the bottom side.
DNK is just not slowing down. He's got 500 gold over the next closest person in the game, which is G4. That seems absolutely insane.
And that's a 4-1 Elise. That is something you definitely do not
yeah.
want to play against. Now going to be able to move in and take this blue buff, essentially uncontested. No one here to match him, and the clear speed is just going to get higher and higher as he kind of gets ahead of the curve.
Pop able to dodge away from the cocoon here, but there are 3 people from low key, and Duel doesn't want to give up the minions, so he runs straight underneath the tower.
Good play. Trades his life. I think they were hoping to get Pop as well, but Pop is able to make it out of safety. Of course, no real mana for the Lucian to follow up.
It'll still be a trade up, though, for low-key, because all the minions that were denied for Daewoo in the bottom lane, but minions still being denied topside. Hani does have the level lead over Rocky at the moment, but you can see how Rocky takes really good trades up against Hani. The Kled has a lot of power built into his W, where he gets those rapid-fire auto attacks coming through. But Rocky, because of his passive shield, whenever you go for a trade, Rocky's going to be able to block all of that damage and be able to deal out his own, and can definitely scale into quite the monster with the true damage on Q, as well as the Trinity Force, which is just going to be much more impactful in a side lane than the itemization coming through from Kled.
Yeah, you can obviously see how much Kled is struggling in the lane. Double Doran's not something we expect in a matchup that you're doing well in. 20 CS discrepancy remains. Mid lane remaining relatively even. And interestingly, the Xin actually pulling ahead in CS, but obviously the Elise kill is going to make sure that she stays ahead of the opposition for now. And kind of just waiting, I think, for the next big play. No one's gone for a Drake yet. The Herald hasn't spawned. We're 20 seconds away from that. Maybe that's where we see the first real point of action.
So we are in a window where I think Loki would really like to fight around their jungler. Obviously, you have 4 kills, but specifically having the completed Runic Echoes is such a big power spike, whereas Lloyd, just with the 2 longswords, if he was able to upgrade that into Warrior, which he does now, that's 40 bonus AD for basically the price of 500 gold. So he's going to be very happy with that, and that should equalize the matchup a whole lot more now because, as you mentioned, CS in favor of Lloyd also means levels in favor of Lloyd, and especially early on, extra levels just give you so much more effective gold in terms of just raw stats and power in fights.
Yeah. Good position for Lloyd, actually, to bring this one back, even if he hasn't had the same impact on the map quite yet. But overall, a very slow, very controlled game when you think about it. That's not true. There's 8 kills. I don't know why I said that. We're in a brief period of slow and controlled before the next period of killing. Lloyd is going to go right in. DNK managed to find the stun. Needs to get out of there, but just barely able to push that. Jumps to the Wolves, flashes away, does manage to make it out. Trades his flash for the Camille ult, but immediately the engage on the bottom side. Celebrity now stepping back in, but he walks right into the snare. That's not what he needed. Thunderstorm comes out, traded for the Culling. Celebrity now trying to retreat. Venus gonna start fishing for some kills. It's Thresh versus the world, but he's gonna grab one. I think he might grab a second. This Thresh is on fire. There's the hook, doesn't even need to connect. It's a bear trap on a rope, and Pop goes down.
Looked like Mega's bot lane was gonna win for a second there, but then Venus shows up. At the same time, teleport coming in through from Hani, rather, and this is going to be big for them, able to pick up multiple plates on the bottom side of the map. At the same time, you see DNK moving down towards the bottom side too, because the obvious return play here is for Lloyd to start up that Herald. Now, seeing this one more time, it is the initiation from Venus, but Pop waiting for it, unable to connect on the knockup there, which I think is going to allow Celebrity to get quite a bit of extra damage to come back. If the knockup does land, that's an instant kill on towards Celebrity. Then all the damage on the auto attacks from Venus coming through, and even though the hook does not connect, as you said, Pop going to go down.
Bear trap on the rope does connect, and that's going to make Hani's life a little bit easier. But as we're looking at the replay, Herald falls uncontested. Wall tower plating is still up in favor of Lloyd, so that should let Mega get the gold back into their favor, or at least balance it out here in the early game if they're able to use the Herald effectively. Pretty much a 2-plate guarantee.
Was a little surprised not to see DNK start up the Drake there with the lead he'd gotten in the bottom lane, especially after using that TP now too, because the play for Mega now, knowing they have a teleport advantage, only 2 TPs on the map, and Hani's is going to be down, is, well, there's only one objective on the map currently. Herald already was taken, so it's just this Drake. Rocky and the rest of his team should be looking to make a play around this bottom side of the map. But low-key are doing some smart things themselves with a lot of deep vision behind them and vision denial to make sure there are no TP flank wards.
Sadly, though, some pressure's now on Loki to execute here because they're racing against this Rift Herald. Rocky, Lloyd, and G4 all around the top side. Looks like both of them are going to back off to make sure that Rocky gets the solo gold here. Tons of gold in the Camille's back pocket.
Plus 610 there. Can we flip over to the gold? Yep. 2K at 12 minutes. That's insane.
That's a solo queue lead right there. That's not one you frequently see, but of course we saw this last time Rocky picked up the Camille into Hani, and it was just very, very Rocky favored. Now it's on the pressures on the rest of the low key. They are going to break a tower. They're sharing the gold, however, between 3 parties rather than focusing it onto a single member of the team.
And Mega's story through the LST in summer was a little bit interesting too, because for so long it had been the trio of Rocky, Lloyd, and G4 just dominating the region. It's why they were able to go undefeated in spring, but immediately they come into the summer season and get beaten on their very first day. And it was very surprising because for so long those three had just been sort of the best in their roles, but all of a sudden they were getting challenged in the jungle, getting challenged in the top lane. And Mega had to sort of re-identify themselves. They brought in Daewoo and Pop as this bottom lane, who were by far the best bot lane in the LST, and all of a sudden they were playing through bottom lane, which is why I was a little surprised even to see on the play-in stage, it was Rocky stepping up in the heat of these moments. So now clearly getting to the point where they can play through multiple sides of the map, and for Loki especially, the matchup they've wanted to break open has been Rocky versus Hani. It does feel very favored towards the Mega side.
Have to see if Hani can have any impact outside of lane. Of course, only 2 TPs in the game, something I'm not really as used to seeing in an era where very often mid laners and AD carries are both taking TP. But Rocky currently with a TP advantage. Hani, of course, with the ult maybe can look to make a play on the map, but things are only going to get harder as Camille gets more items under her belt. It is a Tiamat, a Ninja Tabby versus basic boots, a Triforce, and a Tiamat on the opposite side. So whole Triforce behind just about.
That's what we call top gap. Definitely in favor of Rocky at the moment. Still playing inside the enemy jungle now too, as Pop has rotated towards this top side of the map. So if Mega can find a fight around Rocky at the moment, they're just going to win. He is so strong currently. And in full 5v5s or 4v4s even, I don't think the value of 4 kills on Elise is going to be felt quite as much as it's going to be on that Camille.
I'm also just looking at this. We talked a lot about early game for the side of low-key, and Lucian Thresh kind of were expected to come out on top of the lane, and you can see it in the CS. But now that Xayah and Rakan get to group up, I feel like the safety of Xayah just makes this game so much easier for Mega to now play out.
And that's sort of, I've really liked Mega's drafts actually throughout a lot of play-ins, because they do have very clear win conditions in their games. A couple times it's been Rocky on the split push with some global presence to help him out, with a very safe 3-man core to just clear waves in mid lane. And that's sort of what I feel in this game, where it's largely up to Rocky, and then for him to get stuff done in side lanes while the rest of the team clears waves and controls around the mid lane. And other times it's just been strong team fighting from them. And this time I do feel like it is pretty well balanced between those couple of options. The thing that gets most interesting for me is how do the side lanes actually play out later on, because as I alluded to earlier, low-key don't have a ton of hard engaged tools. It really is just going to be that Kled ult, which is on a long cooldown. So I do think that Rocky can get a ton done in side lanes later on into the game.
And now you can see him grouping up with Lloyd on the top side, already looking to get some work done. Pushing in for tier 2, and we're 15 minutes in, but it just feels like low-key are absolutely and totally willing to concede the top side of the map. Herald obviously already gone, willing to just let this Kled get pushed in over and over again. But DNK has something to say about it. Rocky's just going to walk right out. Pop potentially fishing for an engage, but now you see the mid lane. Daewoo pulls back the threads, but instantly Artifact's going to find the kill. Shuriken flips right back out to safety. Scattered action. You have to wonder what Daewoo was thinking stepping forward there.
And if you remember the last time these teams faced off, it was Rocky on one side and it was Artifact on the other. And it was Artifact on this Akali, even after there's very high priority for him on this champion, showing he can get kills on it here. And that's what low-key are going to do. I think you run around with your Akali, your Elise, your Thresh, and try to find picks with these champions, because especially now with the Gunblade finished, having that slow and extra burst damage makes it a whole lot easier to chase down targets and get those quick solo kills.
And now we're at the point where I feel like in order for the game to break open, someone needs to make a very bold play. Currently, we're seeing a few picks, but not really enough to transition into any greater advantages. That said, as terrifying as Rocky is, low-key still 2K in the lead. Solo lane's obviously much stronger. Hani very much a weak point, but as a team, they have more gold collectively, and it should help them out in the fights to come.
And they're going to be coming up on some strong items too, now with some Magic Pen picked up from Artifact. Celebrity going to be finishing off the Essence Reaver soon as well. But one thing that's been sort of a surprise to me coming into the play-ins is we saw a lot during the summer split, so many people taking teleport in the mid lane, in the bottom lane, all over the map. And sort of at the same time, it felt like split pushing to win games just wasn't a thing. Every game felt like it was decided either by smashing the other team in the early game or by team fighting around large objectives like the Baron. And I felt like in play-ins, it's been a very different story. We've seen the Quinns come into play. We've seen picks like the Camille be very present in side lanes and just breaking open those areas of the map. And I can't help but feel that a part of that actually comes down to people just not running TP in other lanes, because a very common play for you to go against split push, just bring two people down.
No, never mind.
And is just bring a couple people down, kill the split pusher, and then force fights, because you can just react super easily on the opposite side of the map by having so many TPs, and that just hasn't been a thing.
I think you're completely right. It's weird too when you think back to previous world metas where we've been in the Jace top lane dominance, the AD Kennen top lane dominance, and we do see it in Mega though. One of the few teams I think where they have pretty much split pushed their way into total control of a game. Rocky was that guy. He was the guy taking inhibitors while the rest of the team is trying to figure out if they actually can force a Baron in a 5v4 scenario. And I think eyes now are on him. Pressure continues to build on him because once again, this is an elimination match for his team. Everyone else on the map falling behind. He is the single strong point for his lineup overall. That's a ton of pressure. And as you mentioned, he has tools to get away from the limited engage options on the side of low key, but needs to execute, needs to kind of just put Hani for even further under if he wants to come out on top.
Hani in potentially a lot of trouble right here, getting collapsed on, playing the weak side of the map, needs to get out. Gonna have to use the ultimate to escape here. Good read by him, maybe a little bit late. You see Mega, when they're playing the map, they don't play 3 lanes. They play 2 lanes because if you spread yourself too thin, you see situations like this. This time Hani is able to survive and only has to burn the ultimate, but realistically, this was always going to be a trade of outer turrets on both sides of the map.
Yeah. Still just a trade in the end. Rocky will grab the red buff. That will make Hani's life even more miserable. But Intelli has a greater advantage there, not too concerned. Of course, Morella Namicon now coming in for artifacts, so will make it that much more difficult for whatever healing he's concerned about to happen. Not sure, I guess, the Rakan Gleaming Quill or the actual heal, but...
Hey, Rocky's got a Vampiric Scepter, man. Tons of healing.
Hey, it's questionable somewhere. LS is crying out in rage. But, you know, at the end of the day, flat pen, AP, can't go wrong.
A lot of times it's about just item slot efficiency, from what I've heard pro players say about it when you need room for control wards in your inventory, but I say sell your Dorans, probably a better strategy. Anyways, I think looking forward into this mid-game now as turrets start to fall down, controlling pockets of vision becomes a whole lot more important. I like some of the tools that low-key do have to play off of key spells, because you have the Cocoon, you have the Thresh Hook in terms of fishing for picks and these types of ideas. I think that the strength in Loki's comp is going to be because they don't have to commit off of those plays. They can throw them out and suss out whether or not they actually want to go for the fight. Whereas if you're Mega, I think you're much more tied down to Lloyd jumping in or Pop going for engage, where they have to commit their actual champion's body into the fight, which can just be much more inherently risky.
And see if they can find that setup, find that scenario. There is, of course, a lot of vision to check in on the mini-map, of course. Decent coverage around the mid lane, decent coverage around the pit. Kind of odd vision, if I'm honest. Very defensive from the side of Mega, but still does give them enough access into the river that they could contest. And low-key, it's only 20 minutes of the game. They're not realistically looking to take that objective. There have been no Mountain Drakes. You get a cloud into an ocean, not the ideal spawns for aggressive objective taking. And no real tank either. So not an easy Baron, I think, for either side in this game.
So something I think that's an option to both teams is G4 potentially going to find himself in a little bit of trouble here.
Good read next to Cocoon.
Venus not using his spells, though.
Style point.
Now, is he caught?
Back out. Has to flash out.
That was
okay.
Suspect.
Look, it's fine. Realistically, DNK looked really cool. Venus, I think, needed to use that opportunity to get out, but I think he did not realize how many members of the enemy team were coming in.
Yeah, the problem there is definitely the numbers advantage. Hook does land.
Hook connects. Clyde now coming into the backside. G4 in the midst of the team. Venus still alive. A Celebrity instantly dies. Artifact trying to find something, but he gets locked up by the Camille. Yes, he's invisible. When it becomes lightning, not going to connect. Artifact dashing in, but the heal is there. The show. Lloyd taking out Artifact. Knocks him out instantly. And Mega coming out on top of the fight.
Yeah, Artifact getting a little excited right there. Very close to getting multiple kills, but unfortunately locked down underneath the tower with nowhere to go. That was a read where both teams realized, hey, there's going to be a fight around the mid lane after Venus burnt his flash, and both teams were contesting very heavily for vision control over that over the bush in that top side of mid lane, where you do see the one red ward on your screen currently, but sort of unfold in an unexpected way, because a lot of times you try to crash and not actually force the fight, but instead try to get pressure on top of the tower. There is the initial hook coming down, though, and while Lloyd is able to survive, on the top side of the fight was actually where G4 just got straight up solo killed by Hani. Tons of damage coming through from them. And then Artifact goes in, but the heal is the bait, and he can't survive.
Nice zoom in. I appreciate it. Dramatic death. Interesting fight. I like that, and this is what we talked about, to be fair. You talked about Venus fishing for picks. They have the Elise, they have the Thresh. I don't quite think that's what you meant or what you wanted.
Well, the fight was also a 4v5 because Celebrity died instantly. 0 damage coming through from him. Now, as far as like expectations looking forward to the next few minutes of the game, something that I always like to see teams go for when both the outer towers are down is pushing out your side lanes. If you can get vision and protect your side lanes, you push out those side lanes to create pressure. And then once those waves are into the tower, the enemy team has to respond. Then the immediate follow-up is to collapse with both your side lanes, which is very easy on champions like the Kled and the Kali, and just move in towards that mid lane tower. Therefore, you can effectively get yourself a 5v3 and look to knock down that structure, because once that mid lane tower goes down, it becomes so much easier to actually advance your vision into the enemy jungle, try to set up for some picks.
But as you can see, a little bit difficult to contend with Rocky at the moment. Artifact has now been placed against the Camille, so Morelliconomicon now starting to pay off as the Ravenous Hydra for Rocky will be mitigated to a certain degree, and the great battle for Krugs will end.
The problem that's going to arise for Loki in the next few minutes, though, is that Artifact can hold against the Camille. I think that's pretty apparent here, but he's running an Ignite and not the Teleport, so it must be Hani, once Baron becomes a much more viable objective for these teams to play around, to be the one moving down in towards that bottom lane, which is always then going to put Loki on a timer, because Rocky is going to consistently be looking to push in that wave, and eventually start knocking down these towers. And unless Loki can commit multiple members bottom lane and either force Rocky away, get a flash, get a kill, and buy time themselves, that side lane win condition is always going to be apparent.
And the fishing and the vision game continues, but it will not be the Baron that's focused at this stage. It will just be the Ocean Drake that both teams are vying for. Honestly, objectives like this in a game like this feel more like a catalyst for a fight than an actual buff. I don't think anyone's too worried about the Ocean. Yeah, the mid lane tower will retain a decent amount of priority, and here comes the Kled. Artifact leaps right in, gets knocked right back out, but the Kled is still going forward. Will get pulled in onto the Zen. He's going to dash away. Warning shot. It was just was a warning shot. Just threw it in. Just wanted to see the reactions. Get some summoner spells to, of course, force Lloyd's flash. So a small advantage to the side of Loki.
At the same time, Loki lost a lot of ultimates here, so they really only have the culling if a fight is going to break out. So I do feel like they're a little hesitant, especially with the idea that Mega keep wanting to push in for mid tower, because at this point in the game, that mid lane outer tower is almost always going to be more valuable than especially something like the Ocean Drake. So Loki splitting up some members to try and make sure they can clear away those waves. Still, I liked the idea for Loki to try and find that fight, specifically when we look at the itemization between these two junglers. Because right now, Lloyd is going for a Trinity Force, which is something you see a lot more in solo queue than on the professional stage. And while this will give him a stronger 2-item power spike, at the same time, it delays that second item, whereas DNK just went straight for the Zonias, which is going to give him a lot of value.
I got told that thought, because Hani might be in trouble here. Rocky steps forward, uses the ultimate, gets the dismount before he ults. I love it. Hextech ultimatum comes out, and Rocky grabs a very easy solo kill.
And now who actually matches Rocky? I think he could have stuck around in this bottom lane. He's making sure that he's not getting ganked immediately. But the rest of Mega can move over towards the Baron, because no one can match Rocky. He can get this tower, and if Artifact comes down, I would really like to see Mega seize an objective on the other side.
Look, I love how Mega immediately pinged the Baron after he finds that kill, knowing that they have this point of pressure now to play around. Instead, they're not going to run into the mid lane, break the tier 1 tower as G4 starts to fish for kills. And if Rocky keeps this up, he's single-handedly going to pull his team ahead in this game as the gold now veers in the favor of Mega.
And now it's going to become even easier for this split push to occur. Not just because Rocky got some extra gold and experience pushing in that wave, but with the mid lane tower falling, as I mentioned earlier, becomes so much easier to get that deep vision. And specifically because when you push down that mid lane, now all of a sudden there's no protection for Loki. So they have to wait longer for that minion wave to push all the way into them. And then they have to push out that wave while you're roaming somewhere else. So it does create these larger windows now for Mega to get things done around the map and just unlock more options for them.
And as you mentioned, 2-item power spike now comes in for the Xin. Double Trinity Forces on the side of Mega. Would not want to be caught out by the team. Elise, of course, felt like the single strong point in the early game. DNK, though, has not really got a ton of very oppressive itemization here. Falling behind in terms of experience. Could still fish for a pick, but difficult without any follow-up damage. No longer the powerhouse 2-0 Elise in the early game that he once was. G4 now running. Cocoon will not connect. Artifact going to be in trouble. Dashes back, goes into the Shroud. DNK fishing for a little bit more, but Lloyd does so much back. Gonna pull away. G4 stepping forward, but now they're gonna look for the collapse. Lloyd is now in trouble. The fight is turning against Mega. Loki, step in, take out the jungler. But Camille's on the bot side. They're already split pushing. Loki need to make a decision, and they need to make it fast.
And now the timer is on Mega. When will Rocky commit the TP over towards the Baron? Because G4 is going back to base as well. They only have 2 members around the pit, and while DNK is low, that is not enough players to actually win a fight.
7K dropping lower. Baron 5K. Pop, of course, has the mark on him. The hook will connect. The TP now coming. He's going straight into the pit. Rocky is absolutely fearless. The Rakan engage goes in, but it's not going to amount to much. Rocky needs to step forward. Steps into Hani. Hani's still going to be alive. Rocky is spade off, but G4 now stepping in. Cannot get anything else done. Celebrity looking for more. The shutdown is there. Daewoo going to grab one. G4 going to be in trouble. He's running away, but it's a wipe for Low-Key. They absolutely smashed the fight. The triple for Celebrity.
A massive team fight win right there for Low-Key. They didn't need the Baron. All they wanted was the fight with numbers advantage. That is how you convert a single pick onto the enemy jungler into so much more. 3 kills onto the AD carry, as well as that mid lane tower, and also the TP. Probably the biggest prize for Low-Key now, because with that added combat power, now they also have the global advantage, so they can look for these fights a whole lot more easily. Jumping into this team fight, though, is this hook that starts it off straight onto Pop, but they wait. The TP will come on through, and now I want to watch actually Artifact start this one off here, because he's the one that gets all the damage down on Pop and single-handedly zones him out of the fight. Daewoo, rather, can never get a single auto to come down, and Artifact was also able to land the Shuriken and follow up to get the kill on towards Rocky. Last time it was a battle between the mid laner of Low-Key Esports, Artifact, and Rocky, and while yes, it was Celebrity picking up the triple kill, very well played by him, I think Artifact had so much to do with the outcome of that fight.
Now we have to see what Low-Key can do to push their advantage. You see 3K for both the respective AD carries, Assassins on the enemy team. But with that fight, they still don't amount to much. They get the TP advantage you mentioned, but it's not the Baron. It's not converted there. And so for Low-Key, need to get more if they want to cement this advantage. Because once again, Rocky is still a pain point. No matter what the fight they just won, they got a lot of gold as a team, but Rocky is still almost impossible for this team to answer.
Now, the difference for them coming out of this is the fact that Rocky doesn't have the TP now. So Hani, of course, can group up with the team. You just have to play off these 30-second windows, because that's when waves, they come in on these 30-second increments. So Hani can clear away this wave, pick up the next one, and then he has some free time to roam around with his team and make a play happen potentially. Now, the problem is Rocky is always going to have control over this jungle unless multiple members of Low-Key are committed to the bottom side of the map. But this is going to be a situation where unless Low-Key are willing to make a play with this advantage, the game will just slow down, because Mega aren't going to be forcing anything. They just want to wait until Rocky gets something done down bot lane.
It's just so easy for Rocky to get in and get out of any exchange. Of course, once Hani is demounted, luckily he's very close to base, but just huge amount of damage. However, Thresh and Lucian, you can see the rotation coming in. The vision is there to cover Rocky, though, so he knows that this is coming. Kind of Mission Impossible his way out. Hook shot, wall dive, blast cone. The flay is there. Going to dodge out on the hook with the ultimate. Going to try to blast cone to safety. He will manage to make it out, but Hani's now coming in. Pop going to be the one in trouble. Rocky could be next on the list. The Rakan caught up. Mega tried too hard to force the split, but no, a beautiful fight from the Zion. Now Lloyd is diving right back in. Rocky is still alive, and it's Venus who is in trouble. No one can get a smooth leg up in the fight, but Artifact slays G4 in the 1v1.
Oh,
in the meantime, Daewoo now forced to run, but a mess of a fight.
Daewoo, almost just abandoned by his team right there, is able to survive, but now the TP comes in on the top side of the map. It started off with Artifact and DNK finding the kill onto G4. Now it's a 5v3 potentially around the Baron. But without a TP, it is just up to Lloyd, and he doesn't even have flash. There's no way into this pit.
Incredibly scrappy fight thus far. Lloyd's still stepping forward despite not having a flash here. 3K dropping lower. It's just a spectator to this Baron take. Rocky, in the meantime, will start to break down the bot lane tower, but will not overstay his welcome, and that's a big advantage for the side of Low-Key.
It's going to be so much easier to push forward and try to close this game out. Low-Key now 4K gold lead on the map. All you got to do is group up and force around objectives, not start knocking down these towers. And while this Baron isn't going to be the Baron to end the game for Low-Key, this is when you try to bloat that gold lead, knock down all those towers outside the enemy base.
And of course, you have to remember, Mega backs are against the wall. They lose this one. They are out of contention to leave the group. We can take a look exactly as how this happens. Not a full 1v1. G4 actually just pulls back, burns everything he has, goes back in, but surprise, surprise, there's an Akali here. You can see in his head that he thought he was going to get the fancy outplay, but just walks right back into melee range of the Akali.
Yeah, probably needed to wait for the second cast of R to come towards him and then go for the distort back, but ultimately that was almost a straight-up solo kill from DNK, using all the gold he got much earlier on in the game to turn that into a team fight win, and eventually that Baron. Now, can Low-Key actually force anything? Because I do feel like Mega have a lot of defensive tools to try and survive here. There's only really, the one ranged AD threat on the side of Low-Key to try and hit these towers, so the siege should be a little bit slower, but I don't think there's a whole lot of wave clear up against the Baron buff. It's really just Daewoo trying to knock through these minions. This one should go down easy.
Yeah, no real wave clear realistically on either side, unless the Xayah feels comfortable enough to step forward to try to contest some of these creeps. Maybe Rocky can find a flank, but there's the culling. Celebrity gonna take a tower shot for a bit of that poke damage as Artifact fishes for the shuriken flip, looking for a way into the backside of a team fight. Now protecting the cannon creep is the name of the game, as no one on this team can actually approach. Feathers do get pulled back by Dale, leaves the tempo procced. Just trying to hold on for now, and you're waiting, honestly. The Cocoon does connect. Good poke damage. The AP on the Elise. Very high.
There we go.
The fight is kicking off. Rocky off to the flank, but he's not doing anything yet. His team might be dead before he even gets into the fight. D-Mount comes in for Honey. Honey now on the retreat, has used the stopwatch. Artifact so incredibly low. His sights are set on this inhibitor. They're just going to try to break this and leave. The fight turns against them, but low-key get what they came for. Now they need to get out before they lose anything else. Rocky steps forward and just dies. Celebrity Ensemble, now they have the potential to turn. The Baron creeps are here. It's really all on Daewoo. Lloyd and Pop just there to protect the AD carry to try to stop this game from ending.
Yeah, Celebrity did go down, but Loki might be able to force the end right now. There's so many minions inside of the base. They have to be able to find a fight, but it's not going to come.
Diving in. Last hope for Mega. They need to make this last desperate stand to hold on to the game. Redemption comes out, a bit more healing. Trying to buy more time for their AD carry, or for the carries to respawn. 37 seconds on Rocky, 31 counting down, 19 on G4.
They need the melee minions because the cannons are outside of tower range. They actually can't walk up and hit the tower.
But so much damage coming in for Artifact. They're just slowly bleeding them out. I don't think there's anything that they can do. Dale needs to find the fight immediately, but he's not doing it. He's not stepping forward, and that's going to be it. Mega, just like that, are going to be knocked out of the tournament. Low-key have secured their way out of groups.
Led by DNK in the early game, he absolutely smashed and got such a big lead for the team.